Department, are you asking them to pay you compensation for the federal investigations that happened to you? And how much are you asking
for? Well, I guess they probably owe me a lot of money for that. But if I get money from our country, I'll do something nice with it, like give it to charity or give it to the White House. We'll see what happens. I mean, we have numerous cases having to do with the fraud of the election, the 2020 election, and because of everything that we found out, I guess they owe me a lot of money.
That was NewsNation's Kelly Meyer asking the president if he is seeking compensation from his very own Justice Department. This coming after a New York Times report that found that the president was allegedly after $230 million for past legal cases. President Trump responding to the claims, saying he supposes the DOJ owes him a lot of money. And if he were to receive any of it, he would donate it to charity. Let's discuss. Here to join us is former U.S. Senate candidate and CEO of Bridge Entertainment Labs, Stephen Olikara, and Chair of Education Opportunity at the America First Policy Institute, Erika Donalds, is here with us as well. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here. Erika, let's start with you. This sounds pretty corrupt, no?
It does, and it's unprecedented, but because the weaponization of the federal government against Donald Trump was unprecedented, let's remember, they tried to bankrupt him and his family, as well as put him in jail for the rest of his life, in addition to making sure that he doesn't take the White House again. So had they been successful with this weaponization, he would be in jail, he would be bankrupt, and he would be suing a Kamala Harris administration, who is definitely not going to pay anything out for those crimes of the federal government. So he is in an unenviable position, although because he is independently wealthy and can donate these proceeds to charity, he can offset it a bit. But he is certainly entitled to compensation for what was done to him.
So, but nothing about him asking his own DOJ to pay him back for this makes you uncomfortable?
Yeah, I'm glad that he's able to donate it to charity. I think that it's easy for the FBI, for the DOJ to look back at settlements in the past and what was done for those settlements and be able to make a reasonable compensation decision based on what happened to President Trump. But like I said, this is the only way for him to get justice for what the federal government did. And we have to hold the swamp accountable, or else what happens in the future if these types of settlements are not reached? So it's an unprecedented position. I agree with everyone saying, we don't want to see this happen, but we also don't want to see the weaponization of our government against former presidents like happened to President Trump.
Stephen.
Well, I think the American people can look at this and say this doesn't pass the common sense test. This is Trump asking a subordinate to pay him with taxpayer money during a government shutdown $230 million. At the same time, I do believe that we've had politically motivated prosecutions both during the Biden Justice Department and during the Trump Justice Department. And so there is potentially a case for damages here. Now, Trump says it's very awkward that he's, quote, suing himself and that he's been damaged greatly. I would argue that this prosecution actually amplified his political prospects, potentially helped him win re-election, and he's now president of the United States.
Stephen, you acknowledge that there was a weaponization of the Justice Department under the last administration against President Trump. This is not something that one hears a lot from Democrats. What we do hear is a denial that that took place. And I think that that does fuel this feeling on the right that the deep state or the institutions are really weighted in favor of one political side over the other. Why don't more Democrats acknowledge what you just did, and how can we bridge that divide and create more consensus around that?
Because most Democrats on TV are partisan operatives who are, in my view, I say this charitably, political hacks. And so as a result, they're not able to look at these issues holistically. It's my team versus your team, us versus them. When our side does it, it's right. When they do it, it's wrong. And part of what I'm trying to do when I go on platforms like this is get beyond the partisanship and look more at the truth.
I love that. Erika, I want to call your attention to some political hackery that we saw this week. Here are some Democrats complaining about their new great foe, the big problem in America today. Watch.
Donald Trump and Republicans have turned their attention to the most pressing matter of the moment, Trump's shiny new White House ballroom.
The East Wing of the White House is being demolished so that Donald Trump can construct a ballroom where he will be celebrated like a king.
Donald Trump is telling the American people, no Medicaid for you. The ballroom for me.
Erika, what did you make of this ballroom that is haunting the dreams and nightmares of the Democrats?
Well, they're doing their best to continue to distract from the Democrats' shutdown of the federal government. But nevertheless, we know if Clinton or Obama had been the one to initiate this new ballroom, it would be celebrated. It would be a great diplomatic victory. President Trump has exhibited diplomacy through entertainment. He has built his success on being able to bring people together, including people from the other side, foreign diplomats. He knows how to do this. He's been doing it his entire career at Mar-a-Lago, at Bedminster, in Scotland. So he is bringing the Trump style of diplomacy permanently to our White House. I think it's absolutely something to be celebrated. I can't wait for it. People who have been to events at the White House, we have to go in waves, in heats, and you don't know if you're going to get to see the president because they have to have 15 different Christmas parties. This is going to be a great asset for the American people for years to come.
Yeah, Stephen, I really... The emotion that the people who are upset about this are feeling seems very real to me, but for the life of me, I cannot understand what it's coming from.
Yeah, well, part of what's happening, Batya, is that this emotion that you're speaking to has been manufactured by what I call the division industrial complex. It's partisan operatives, it's politicians. I saw Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar just put together a video kind of showing their outrage about this, and partisan media as well. And that is why now you're seeing liberals so worked up about this. My advice for liberals and Democrats is don't let this ruin your day. As you've noted, a number of presidents have made updates. Now, this is bigger than usual, but it does speak to a larger issue, one that I suspect we all agree with, which is Washington for a long time has had a system of legalized bribery. This is noted on the Hill, where members of Congress get donations from major corporations and lobbyists to shift policy in their favor. In the case of this ballroom, you have private money coming from extremely wealthy individuals, as well as major corporations. You have Wall Street, you have big tech, you have big pharma represented in these donations, and you know it's pay to play, it's legalized bribery, because those corporations would not be doing well by their shareholders if they weren't asking for something in return for this ballroom. So that is an issue that people should see a problem with.
Erika, I wanted to ask you, speaking of this genuine emotion, I mean, looking at the No Kings rally, we made a lot of fun of it on the show last week, but a lot of these Democrats are feeling truly and deeply traumatized by this administration. My question to you is, does the right have any responsibility to try to pull them out of that in a compassionate way? Or is it just so ridiculous to have those emotions in the first place and that it's completely fair game to just make fun of them?
I think we can definitely make fun of those who are being overly dramatic and are trying to draw on the emotions of the American people to be against this White House and this administration. However, I know I make it a point to have discussions about policies as much as possible, especially with people from the other side, because I think there are plenty of people in the middle, moderate Democrats, who, when you talk to them about individual policies and decisions being made, especially by President Trump and this Congress, you can come to common ground on a lot of those issues when you get it out of the emotional realm. I know I prefer to do that. Certainly, we cannot expect that out of the radical left or out of the pundits on television. However, the American people are hungry for conversations around policy. That's why I love your new show, Batya. You always come with substance. I think this really fills a void that is not being filled right now in the media.
Well, if you can find common ground anywhere, it's between the two of you, wonderful people, Stephen Olikara and Erika Donalds. Thank you both so much for joining us.